Hi everyone, I'm Ashlei Williams, the assistant editor with PHC News and the Wholesaler magazine. I'm at my alma mater once again, Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, and I am here to speak with Dr. Donald McNeeley. In addition to being a professor here in the engineering school, Dr. McNeeley is the CEO of Chicago Tube and Iron. He is a well-known executive in the PVF industry and one of our very own columnists. And today, for this episode of the McNeeley View, we're going to revisit one of Dr. McNeeley's columns that he wrote in August that focuses on the role that change plays in a business. And I would be remiss if I did not congratulate you for 100 years of consecutive successful business. I think that's a great transition to my first question, because everyone wants to know, how do you do that? So can we talk about the role that change can play in the success or demise of a business?
The centennial to which you refer is an accomplishment, an achievement that 99 out of every 100 business launches find elusive. Only 1 out of every 100 business launches ever makes it to its centennial. So there alone puts us in rather rarefied air. Because of the embracement of sound capitalistic principles and the free market that we like to embrace, not only have we achieved our centennial, but we have achieved that centennial with 100 years of consecutive profitability. So now, specific to your question, having laid that foundation, change does play a role. Whatever the business model was a century ago would certainly be dated today. It certainly wouldn't be something that could sustain that evolution. So social scientists would call it a significant emotional event. They say throughout one's life, along that journey, you will encounter 3, perhaps 4 significant emotional events. A significant emotional event is something that you incur that causes you to live your life differently from the next day forward. Something that happens, if you will, out of order. A child predeceasing a parent, clearly a significant emotional event. The equivalent in an organization of a significant emotional event is what we call a point of inflection. A point of inflection where you have absolutely optimized the previous business model, and now certain dynamics beyond your control, either in the global economy, the domestic economy, or a destructive technology, causes you to introspect how that company might need to be changed to go forward.
And I'm curious to know if there are any other companies, either in our industry or outside of our industry, that you think have successfully navigated change that stand out to you.
Well, we're in an engineering school tonight, as you know. You're sitting in the classroom, and the interesting thing is most C-suite executives will ascend to the C-suite from one of the functional areas. They're going to come from accounting, they're going to come from finance, they'll come from sales and marketing, they'll come from operations, they'll come from engineering. Ironically, engineering probably has the highest failure rate in making that leap, that ascension to the C-suite. However, those CEOs that we tend to use as the standard by which we judge the rest of us happen to be engineers. And the name that comes to mind, responding to your question, is General Electric and Jack Welch. Jack Welch is a chemical engineer, PhD out of the University of Illinois, and think of the company that he ran for so many years. Jack Welch ran GE, a company founded by Thomas Edison. So Jack Welch takes over, and in effect, they're making light bulbs. Well, by the time Jack Welch left, through a number of iterations, a number of points of inflections, a number of destructive technologies that he had to navigate around, they're now making titanium blades for jet propulsion engines and so much more. What a diversified conglomerate. Bill Gates is another one from Microsoft. At one time, the PC industry, personal computer industry, enjoyed 40% gross margin and 9% net. Because of the emergence of competitors, such as Michael Dell and Dell Computer and Samsung and so many others, the gross margin in the PC industry fell from 40% to 18%. Yet Bill Gates found a way to maintain that 9% net margin. So how does a gross margin in an industry get cut by more than half, yet we're able to maintain that net margin? And there's the Howard Schultzes of Starbucks, there's the Herb Kelleher of Southwest Airlines, and so many more. There are some very legitimate role models out there.
And in your column, just to go back to that, you put on your professor's hat, and there are a few theories that you discussed that you've kind of woven into a few of your answers, and I want to make sure that our viewers get a better understanding of that. So could we start with the empirical organizational life cycle? Can you break that down for us?
So the theoretical life cycle has us launching a product, the inception or the birth, if you will. The second stage is a period of accelerated growth. Eventually, in that time frame, that evolution, you reach a point of product or service maturation, it matures, and then eventually it's run the course of its life, it begins its decline stage. And once you hit the decline stage, it will continue to evolve to the point of obsolescence where it no longer exists, or it will incur some type of significant downsizing. That's the theoretical organizational life cycle. An empirical life cycle, if you will, which I wrote about, is how it works in real life. When we're done with the theory, how does it work in real life? And if you go from a young industry or a young company to a mature industry, you're going to go from low profit to higher profit, and eventually you're going to begin to experience a deterioration in that profitability. So once again, the empirical organization suggests that in the span of one's 30 or 40-year career, you're going to experience 3, no more than 4 of those points of inflection. My point being, those points of inflection are where leadership must emerge. You must stand and deliver. In between those points of inflection, I would suggest to you is really management. And there's a distinct difference between leadership and management.
Something else you touch on is the evolution and revolution of organizational growth. Can you explain that also?
Yeah, that was the landmark study by a Professor Larry Greiner. Last time I was following Professor Greiner, he's out at University of Southern California, I believe. But he talks about over this evolution that we continue to speak of, and we're doing that because, you know, I had the great privilege of sitting at the helm of a company when it reached its centennial. Now, I certainly didn't drive it for all 100 years, and even the time I was there, I certainly didn't drive it alone. But to have the honor, the privilege of being at the helm for its centennial is really an honor that I feel very proud of. Having said that, in the process of the evolution of that company, you're going to go through different phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, certainly chronologically labeled. And the growth of a corporation doesn't happen linear. It doesn't happen exponential, but along that linear growth of organic and acquisitory growth, acquisition, you're going to reach in that evolution these points of revolution, where all of a sudden you need to rethink the existing model. I could take you through 7 or 8 different phases, but let me give you the first one. You and I start a business, and we're partners. It's a partnership. And all of a sudden we have 5 employees, 10 employees, 15 employees, and we continue to grow and post profit. We continue to grow every year. And all of a sudden we wake up and we have 40 employees. Do they go to Don or do they go to Ashlei? Now confusion sets in. It starts to divide the workforce. Well, if you and I don't have the leadership skill to sit down and figure that out, you'll be the CEO, I'll be the COO, and bring order to that otherwise chaos, all of a sudden the organization starts to deteriorate. So as time goes on, even the structure of an organization needs to be rethought.
And just to close, because a lot of people do turn to the McNeeley view for your insight and your suggestions and your tips, is there anything you would share with our readers, kind of practical knowledge you wish someone had told you, either for a leader in a business trying to navigate change or just a person in their professional life trying to navigate change?
So I think leadership, and especially in the C-suite, you are often in a position where you have to make unpopular decisions. And sometimes you need to save people from the market. Sometimes you need to save them from the variations in the stock market and retirement funds. But what I have found, and I wish somebody had warned me, is most of the time you're going to end up saving people from themselves. There's this self-destructive DNA that a lot of people seem to have. And I think mentors can play a significant role. I think you need to be able to understand those mentors will give you guidance. But along with those mentors, there's going to be time where you have to lock the door. You're going to be all alone, and you need to make the call, knowing that that making of that call might not be a popular decision at the time. And one of the things I came across earlier in my year, one of the metrics, if you will, is 20, 50, 30. When you're going to introduce change into an organization, 20% of the people are going to support it just because it's you. You have what we call street cred on the south side of Chicago, street credibility. 20% of the people walk through that wall just because you ask them to. 30% of the people are going to oppose the change. They're going to undermine it, they're going to sabotage, they're going to do whatever they can do to keep it from happening. Why? Just because it's you. Just because there's an inherent distrust in some organizations of their leadership. The 50% in the middle are important because they're the undecided. So when a change effort in an organization proves successful, it suggests to you that the 20% that were on board prevailed over the 30% that weren't on board in convincing the constituency, that 50% in the middle, that it was a good thing to do. So it's not an easy job, but it's certainly a rewarding job.
Well, thank you, Dr. McNeeley, for speaking with me, and congratulations again to you and the entire Chicago Tube and Iron team on your centennial celebration. For you all watching at home, if you would like to see more, you can visit us at phcnews.com or thewholesaler.com.